I recognize this pattern that for the World War I, there's that for stuff I mentioned earlier, the militarism, alliances, terrorism, nationalism. I think I want to relate this to the Israel and Palestine. Yeah, Palestine's that conflict. Yeah, it's based on the alliances of Israel and America that made Israel that powerful to be able to like attack Palestine that quickly and long and took that long time span and all that. And then from that, at first it was triggered by Israel's need of territory for the people, which led them to like ask America for help to make them to give them territory by attacking Palestine. I think that's one of the patterns I see that is apparent.
So keeps on going.
No, we're good.
Repeats.
Yeah, repeats itself in this Israel and Palestine conflict. Yeah, I think that's what I see. Just further, yeah.
I would like to add that one pattern I see is the high amount of nationalism. The World War I was triggered by the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. This was an act from Serbian people. They're Serbian nationalists who thinks that it was their right of land. The same thing happens with World War II, where Hitler deemed that part of Czechoslovakia and Poland was part of Germany, and think that and has high nationalism on how Germany should be. And then relating to Sheila's statement about Israel and Palestine, that was also an act of nationalism from the Israelis, because that conflict was from the Jewish Holy Bible, where they said that Palestine's land is actually the promised land of Jewish people. So this high amount of nationalism that are exactly curbed by, well, during the World War I there was no buffer to stop it. Well, during the World War II there was the failure of the League of Nations, and right now the Israeli-Palestine conflict was because the United States has a veto in the United Nations. And since the United States are allies with the Israelis, this means that they have a huge amount of power on what Israel will be doing to acquire that promised land. So if this conflict isn't curbed as soon as possible, it might be war might be the answer to solve this conflict.
Don't forget about how to prevent another world war.
I'll add more on what I said. So, to prevent another world war, I think countries shouldn't have that much power to say in an international conference like the United Nations. When a country has that much power, like the United States, I think it'll create an imbalance in the world. So, so countries that are still developing, countries that wants to say something for themselves, might not be able to do so because of the veto power from Russians or the French or the United States. So I think if the United Nations can make a new kind of rule that a veto power shouldn't be abused as much, I think that war will be far, far away from us.
Yes, next speaker, please.
I would like to add, from what I see from the two wars, the pattern would be like, first, certain countries want power, which can be in the form of independence or expansion or terrorism. And because of this need, this goal, this causes tensions and clashes with other countries. Because of this division, there is violence which triggers full-on war. And from past wars, we can see that in the middle of war, the U.S. will intervene, and afterwards, slowly one side of one alliance cripples, and at the very end, the main power of the alliance is defeated through a huge battle. So I think if we try to prevent war, we would have to focus on diplomacy, the relations between different countries, and I guess the United Nations is an important factor to that because they can be the mediator between different countries that may have dispute. Thanks.
When you're saying that U.S. Usually intervene in the middle of the war, do you think he has this power to prevent another war?
Yes, because even now we can see that they're trying to intervene in a lot of wars in the Middle East, such as in Syria and Iran. So they definitely think that they can use interventionism when it comes to foreign relations.
Great. What about Ran? Dicky, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would like to add one more thing. I think the World War I and World War II was caused by an act of terrorism. Now, it may be a vague term to call it terrorism, but it exists long before the First World War. And I think the assassination of Franz Ferdinand was an act of terrorism. It was kind of a warning on what will happen if they kept on attacking the Serbians. And Second World War was an act of terrorism in a large scale from the Germany and the Nazi Germany. So I think them invading Poland and Czechoslovakia is an act of terrorism on a large scale. They invade the country and take over them. Now I think this has an effect today on how terrorism is viewed as a way to convey people's ideas on what they think is an ideal world. Like bombings in Bali was an act of terrorism, and the World Trade Center, the 9/11 was an act of terrorism on how the Al-Qaeda was trying to say about the United States. So I think the act of terrorism is just a negative way of communicating communities or organizations' ideas. So I think to prevent for another act of terrorism, a forum or a medium for them to communicate their ideas without having to do it in a controversial manner is one of the best ideas that probably should be implemented, because people always talk about free speech, but they don't give people enough chance to actually communicate, to actually give a speech. So I think when people are given a chance to actually say what they want and to negotiate it, I think the act of terrorism can be curbed.
Yeah, as I agree with that, and I would like to add that the organization or like the people who are who are actually authorized to like control the freedom of speech of the people is actually the government themselves, because they're the ones who's up there who controls the countries, their own country though. And if the government themselves does not give the people opportunity to speak, then how are they supposed to tell other people in